Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for tuning in and checking out the video. So this video is going to be talking about Gabriel Rosado versus David Lemieux. So this fight, if you're not familiar with both of these guys, I'm going to get into both of these guys as fighters. Most people watching the video should be familiar with Gabriel Rosado, but not so much David Lemieux. So I'm going to get into Lemieux later on in the video. Now, when this fight was first announced, everybody was anticipated they wanted to see Gabriel Rosado facing James Kirkland on what would have been on the Bernard Hopkins versus Sergey Kovalev card. And that was an excellent fight. And James Kirkland ended up pulling out of the fight. It never got done. And David Lemieux is now replacing him at a later date for this fight versus Gabriel Rosado. And really an excellent matchup. I was disappointed when James Kirkland couldn't take the fight. But David Lemieux, guys, is a very exciting fighter, and I think this is a potential for another Fight of the Year candidate, depending on how both fighters take on this matchup. But this is a fight, highly entertaining matchup. I'm going to get into it very shortly. So let me first start off with Gabriel Rosado. Rosado is a guy who is willing to take on any fighter. He's a Philly fighter, so he's got lots of heart. He's a guy who is very effective working off his jab. He can walk down fighters. He uses a variety of punches, good chin as well. Overall, I think he's an old school fighter just with his mentality. So I really respect Gabriel Rosado as a fighter. He's taken on a lot of tough competition. He's got experience. And right now he's actually working with Jesse Reed, who had many world champions. So this is a guy who is a brilliant boxing mind, who I think is going to improve Gabriel Rosado in the future. And this was a really good move for his career going forward. And I think that Gabriel Rosado is going to have better game plan in fights. He's going to start boxing more instead of walking down opponents. And under Jesse Reed, I expect to see some good things out of him. Now, when I talk about David Lemieux up here had a lot of hype behind him for a number of years to be the next big thing fighting out of Canada. Lemieux has a very fan-friendly, aggressive style. He's a guy who is an extremely powerful fighter, very good punch. He has a vicious left hook. If he catches you clean with that left hook, it's going to stun you and it's going to hurt you because he's extremely tough. A lot of people are down on David Lemieux because he lost to Marco Antonio Rubio. Now, going into that fight, Rubio had a vast more experience than David Lemieux did. And he used that experience and ended up defeating David Lemieux when his corner threw in the towel. And the thing about that was that's definitely a learning experience for David Lemieux, in my opinion. He has improved a bit. He's still wild, though, at times, which he needs to step up in his game. But when I watch Lemieux, I see a guy who likes to back up his opponents. He lands some vicious uppercuts when he has them backed up on the ropes or in the corner. And his power can always keep him in a fight. So when I look at this fight, what I think needs to happen for both of these guys to win, David Lemieux needs for Gabriel Rosado to exchange punches with him and kind of get in a brawl, which Rosado has done in the past, walking down opponents. In this fight, I think that would be a mistake for Gabriel Rosado due to the power that Lemieux has, and that's his type of fight. If you go to war with David Lemieux, a lot of times he's going to win that type of a fight. And Rosado, we know, has issues with cuts, so I would not recommend that for this fight, and I don't think he will be doing that. I think he's going to plan on boxing effectively. And that's when I talk about Gabriel Rosado. How can he win the fight? He needs to box throughout the fight and pick his spots and use the variety of punches. Because the thing with David Lemieux, I find when I watch his fights, if he can't get you out of there with the power, I find he gets discouraged and he gets wild. And I think that's going to be a big advantage in this fight later down the stretch. I think that they're really going to try to wear out David Lemieux in the early rounds of this fight. And I'm going to pick Rosado to win a unanimous decision in this fight because I feel that Rosado has more experience. He's been in there with the better competition. I've seen him take punches from big fighters in the past. And that is my reasoning for picking him in this fight. Now, don't get me wrong. David Lemieux is a guy, one-punch power he has. And I wouldn't be surprised if he cuts open Gabriel Rosado and gets the fight stopped by any stretch of the imagination. And Lemieux, I think that if he can just control and become not so wild in the boxing ring, I definitely think this is a guy who can do better things in the sport. And we're going to wait to see, really. I mean, he could come out and look amazing against Gabriel Rosado. And this is a huge fight for both of these guys big title implications down the line, I feel. Some big fights. Whoever wins this matchup. But the real winner in this fight is the fans. Everybody's going to enjoy this fight, and I think they'll gain a respect for David Lemieux's style, even if he loses a fight. I really enjoy watching him personally myself, and if he can redefine some of his boxing skill, I feel he's going to be a guy to reckon with at some point in his career if he can do that. Easier said than done. Nonetheless, guys, great fight. Give me your prediction on this matchup, and if you haven't subscribed, please